Hi, my name is Maria McGrain and I'd like to welcome you to my photography project. It's called Pride of Place and it's about my experiences of growing up in Sheriff Street. My family lived there. We had a shop in our family for 3 generations, and really the time frame that I'm speaking about is from 1958 to 1978. The project really takes the format of interviewing and photographing all of the people who would have come into our shops as children and young adults to buy sweets or cigarettes or small toys or just ordinary everyday things like shampoo and tights that they needed to get by in their lives. Sheriff Street is a very unique place. We didn't know when we lived there that it was quite an extraordinary place. We didn't know it was a finite time that extraordinary time would last for, and it has lasted. And this is a look back at a very special time in my life where I'm really celebrating my family, my parents and my community. And it was a wonderful community that I grew up in. Very emotionally connected, and really a place of great fun and excitement. When you come to see my project, you're going to meet all of the people who came to the shop. You'll see their formal portraits. You'll hear their narratives in the interviews that we've done. You'll hear their funny stories because they're amazing. You'll hear some sad stories. But fundamentally, you're going to meet people who are quite extraordinary. They have lived extraordinary lives, actually. And I think you'll really enjoy it. I'm personally very proud to say that I'm from there. And I think when you meet them, you'll be really surprised because it's very different to how it's normally depicted. It's a wonderful place. Come and join me. I think you'll love it.
My name is Linda Hanlon and I'm involved in Maria McGrain's project on Sheriff Street. And it's been a privilege to be involved in the project, but it also affords me the opportunity to have an outside perspective. As I'm not from Sheriff Street, I'm from Drogheda, grown up there, still live there. Growing up, I would have heard the name of Sheriff Street, which would have instilled all kinds of fear. It was a notorious place, and so much so that I had never visited Sheriff Street until I became involved in the project, Maria's project, Pride of Place. And I've walked the streets, Sheriff Street and the adjoining streets. I've met the people. And what I have met are ordinary people living extraordinary lives, and what I get from them is their sense of community and belonging, and their pride of place comes across to me very strongly. So Sheriff Street is the name of a street, but it's the people who are the soul of Sheriff Street, and that's what has changed my perspective on Sheriff Street.
Loads of memories going out. I used to go for my older brother Michael to get his comics and bring back the ones he bought the week before to swap and get 2 comics for him. And then he always used to buy bullseyes and aniseed balls. They were gorgeous, just the loveliest of sweets. And I got a penny, so I got 2 Cleves toffees for a penny. They were great. But when you walked into that shop, you were always met with either Noel or Carmel saying, "Hello, what can I get for you? How much money have you got today?" And all the jars of sweets all around the place. You'd be like, "Oh, what will I have?" And sometimes you'd say to him, "Give me a penny mix." And he'd take a couple of sweets out of 10 jars and put them in a bag and give them to you. And you didn't know what you had, but you knew it was going to be lovely because they were the best. They were the loveliest sweets ever. And they were always so kind. Carmel and Noel were so kind. If you went in and you only had a halfpenny, they'd give you something. There's always something you could get for that.
Matty's was the best sweet shop in Dublin. Some people said it was the best sweet shop in the world. It had about 4 or 5 steps going down. It was like you were going into a dungeon. The man who sold the sweets, he was called Noel. Sometimes Carmel, she came out to help him when things got busy. I loved pet mice. They were pink, and they had a head, and they had 2 black eyes, and they had a tail, just like a real mouse. I loved biting the head off the mouse and giving it to my best pal, Andy Griffin. Andy's favourite sweets were Lucky Lumps, 2 a penny. Me and Andy do fucking Lucky Lumps. If you stuck the Lucky Lumps for long enough, you could find money at the centre of them. A 3 bit, or even a 6 bit. And if you found the money, that meant you could buy more sweets. Or maybe even a lucky bag. Lucky bags, they were full of surprises. And Andy and me, we loved surprises. I loved clove sweets, and I loved throwaways. Throwaways were 2 a penny. They were like a sweet covered in chocolate. They were called throwaways, but Andy and me, we never threw them away. We only ever ate them. Because that's all we would ever do with sweets that we got in Matty's, the best sweet shop in Dublin, or maybe even the world.
And I remember in the winter time when it got dark and we'd come out of the flats. You were sent to shop, you went to shop, you could go to shop as young as 6, I think, in the flats, because everyone kind of was safe. But it was always lit up, you know, and the shop that stood out to me at the time was Matty's, because it had a big window in it, and what was in the window? Loads of sweets, and the broken chocolate. And we wouldn't have any money, do you know what I mean, to buy it, and we'd be all saying, what would you buy if you had a few pennies or whatever? I'd say, right, broken chocolate. But then if a Sunday, you were always sure to get your wafer.
Yeah.
Matty had a big block of ice cream and he cut it. So we'd buy a wafer. I don't remember how much it was, but we had that. And I think I remember Carmel, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember, I think she was a bit tall. She had her hair kind of to the side.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm sure that she wore a clip in it. And I'm going to steal someone else's thunder if I say this about your dad, so I won't say it.
Say whatever.
Now, this is Pauline's story about your dad. You were all jealous of him, the women who like Frank Sinatra.
Thanks, John, for coming in to talk to me today about Matty's shop in Sheriff Street. I'm delighted you're here. So tell me, what are the memories that you have about Matty's shop?
What I do remember, it was the first modern building that was built in Sheriff Street.
That's funny.
Because when your father built that, it was huge. It was huge. It was, like, you're talking 60 years ago. The first modern building that was, which there should have been all the modern buildings down there, but him and never. It was great for the street and great for your father and all.
Formal boxes of chocolates if somebody was having a birthday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't know who ever bought them because they wouldn't have been cheap.
No, they weren't.
No.
They weren't. They were very expensive, actually.
Yeah.
And then underneath all the sweets were the cigarettes.
Yeah.
Because you could buy loose cigarettes.
And the weighing scales.
The weighing scales.
The little white one. The silver bowl.
That's right.
And then in the window, the window. But I remember thinking to myself, when I grow up, and when I'm working and I have my wages, I'm going to buy loads of sweets out of Matty's. The Coca-Cola would have been kind of iffy. I probably never tasted it at that stage. But wafers, you had to have a wafer. Then I remember as I got older. But I have to tell one story that Carmel was sent to the shop. I think the boys used to send her because they got a buzz of the things she used to do. And she was sent. It always seemed to be sunny when I think of Matty's.
Me too.
Don't know why. It mustn't have rained in them days. And she was sent to the shop for Patsy Ice Pop. Best ever. And she came back with the stick and the paper. All she had to do was go around the corner, down Clippy's Lane and in the house. And she said it melted. And stood there, convincing everybody it melted, with the evidence round her mouth. Like, how she come up with these things, I do not know.
I can remember being in the shop. Now, as Betty said about the ice cream and all, that all come back to me. It's only, you can't believe how much it can bring back to your mind when you just hear someone else saying things.
Yeah.
As Betty said, the big window.
Yeah.
You could always see into it. You could always see what was there, and you know, and
Matchbox
you'd
on.
be dribbling.
Remember the matchboxes on the
The
side?
matchboxes, yeah. The matchboxes, that's right.
The collector's items now.
Yeah,
We've none of them.
that's right. Now you're saying that. But as I said, as Betty was talking there, I was kind of getting little bits. But as I don't know how long was the 1980s left.
Having no asking for Sunsilk shampoo.
Oh, that came to me mind last night.
Yeah.
Sunsilk, remember the sachets of Sunsilk?
Yeah. Nylons and tights.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you were always saying for a pair, go over to Mackey's and get a pair of nylon, whatever colour, mint grey.
That's right.
What's the mint
Mint
grey?
grey.
The first shop I always remember because as a kid, when you didn't have much, and we'd walk by and we'd be able to say like that's our aunt and our uncle shop. So we were very like proud. But you didn't get anything for nothing now in it,
No.
because you wouldn't.
No.
But I always remember the stuff that was in the window, and I always remember the thick chocolate, the broken. I don't know whether it was crunchy.
It was broken crunchy.
And stuff with the white stuff on them. What's them sweets?
Like caramels.
Yeah, the coconut was. Yeah.
And nougat bars.
Yeah, something like that. But I always remember going down the steps, down the steps to it, and then I remember the house was upstairs.
That's
So right, Uncle
That's
Maggie,
up the steps.
Aunt Eileen lived over.
That's to the left, and we lived over to the right.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I used to think it was a massive house, even though it probably wasn't huge. But
No.
when you're small, it's always huge. Your mother would have been always one of these people. To me, if she'd have went on in life and not had married, she would have been somebody
Yeah.
important, because
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was her aim in life.
Yeah.
He was a gentleman.
What kind of a place was Lower Mare Street during that time? It was a great place to grow up. It was safe, lots of people around the place, lots of activity. So it was vibrant. Now there was the flats, as they called them in those days, on the opposite side of the house. We didn't mix an awful lot with them because they tended to go into the other side, the other street, which I think is Sheriff Street. Yeah.
The area is rich in history. The area has wonderful literature and literary giants that came from this area, like Sean O'Casey. James Joyce walked in this area. We had lots of people involved in the Rising who used to meet in 100 Seville Place. Then you have great musicians like Luke Kelly. And this area, I suppose, is a very rich corner of a rich city with lots of really interesting characters. The great fun that I had with a playful city and women from the area when we closed off the roads and we set up street games that children had done years ago, and then women all came out and showed the children, their grandchildren actually, how to play games, skipping and ball games, and it was really great to see the enthusiasm for life. People in this area have a lot of problems because of, I suppose, when the flats were knocked down, they took away kind of the core of the community, but at the same time, the people still have the same kind of enthusiastic outlook for life.
What?
There's a huge amount of suffering, but the more that you tell somebody that you are a great artist, you have the potential to do this, the better that person becomes, the better everyone sees the place. It's just very difficult because if there is one bad incident, it obliterates all that went before it, and you have to start again. But I think certainly the core, particularly the women who live here. I mean, a lot of people have moved out as well, but the core of the women that live here are very strong. But they can't do everything. They need to be supported by the institutions, by all the stakeholders in the area.
The reason why we ended up in Sheriff Street was my father was a docker, a casual docker.
Yeah.
That was one reason, and he would come in and he mightn't get work.
Mm.
But when I discovered Maddie's, you see, I have two memories about it. One is the comfort food, the comfort sweets.
Mm.
And the other is it was a centre of connections. So I personally, I got a lot of solace, a lot of comfort going in there, and exploring like Pat Short. How much of them? How much of these? How much of them? Give me 2 of them and 1 of them. No, 3 of them. How much? It's a bit like that. And Matty was infinitely patient.
Your grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that sticks out with me, my father told me this. Patty used to sell everything in the shop. Matty, he had 2 big 40-gallon drums for paraffin oil.
Right.
And he had sticks, he had turf. Talking about the health authorities, he would have been in jail nowadays. Well, anyway, the man, they used to deliver the paraffin in 2-gallon, and the fellow would be outside, and he'd walk in with it, and he'd fill it up. Your father was sitting on the steps, watching the man going in and out, you see. And your father was counting, and he was supposed to go in 20 times to fill the 2 barrels. And then he did 18, and he went down to get paid off. And your father followed him down, cut the man with the throat. He says, "You have 2 more effing runs to do. I don't mind you robbing the company you're working for, but I'm not going to rob my brother." And he says, "We're not going to report it. Give him an extra one, or you won't get out of here."
Great. Sylvia, thanks so much for coming over. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, is there any memory that you have of Matty's shop in Sheriff Street that comes to mind?
Great memories. Great memories of us getting their money, their pocket money, and where we go straight to Matty's. And if a camera was on, we were afraid because she was like a school teacher.
She was that?
We used to be afraid of her. And if the Marie one was on, you say, she only gives you a little bit of thick chocolate, don't go to her. That's what she used to say. But, yeah.
And who'd give you more chocolate than anyone else?
No.
Yeah, I knew you'd say him.
No.
Yeah.
No, the father, no. We only just went into this, we just used to look at Paul. Paul was a fine thing.
Yeah.
Lovely fella.
Yeah.
And then, great memories, we used to go over Sunday, get our wafers off your father.
That's right, on Sunday.
On a Sunday afternoon, go over to Knoll to get a wafer.
And you had the wafer measure, didn't
He had a wafer, the big,
metal yoke from
metal yoke, yeah. But we used to say, as I'm saying, if that Marie one is on, don't go in, you only get a little bit off her. And we used to say that, because I said I keep that for this.
Changed.
Not changed. With a long hair, all down our back. We used
That's right, I remember that.
Remember that? We used to say no. But when Paul was on, all the bleeding girls was in. He was a fine thing.
Do you remember when he had the motorbike?
Jesus and all.
He'd long hair to here.
He'd long
and
hair.
beads.
Always beautiful, Paul was.
Yeah.
Don't remember any of the rest now. Only Murray and Paul.
We were the eldest.
Then when you think of it, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Remember your man, like, Jesus, I could see her sitting here now, behind, well, I could visualise her behind the counter. And I'm saying, oh, don't start her today. She'll give you a tip in the ear. And out the shop.
And what, would she say anything in particular when you went in?
No. Carmen was nice. Carmen was Carmen.
Yeah.
Carmen had good days, Carmen had bad days.
Correct.
But your father was a real softy. A gentleman. I loved now. Sure, I only seen him there a few years ago. I think I bumped into him walking along somewhere,
And I screamed, no, no, there, Matties. And he was hilarious. He was young mortar, he said to me. Little young mortar.
Yeah, he was a little dog.
Oh, I loved Noel.
The ladies
always had a
loved him.
smile. Always had a smile on his face, Noel.
Well, I remember I came down here as a young bride and had reared 6 kids. The best area I ever came into, and I loved it. I never had any problems. Great.
Well, what you refer to there is normally called the fall of the docks, containerisation, where everything came into a steel box. Before you could have a ship on the hold, you could have maybe 4 men in the hold, you know, packing the stuff, then the crane lifted out, then more men loaded onto the trolley, move over the shells, offload it, all of that, because the container then was just lifted off. Coal boats now were suction, you know. So, like, it was devastation. The whole economic base was kind of knocked out. But there was nothing put in to replace it in that regard, you know.
We were the last, I'm 24, so I was the last generation to grow up without a tablet or an iPhone. I don't think I had my first phone until I was near 15, 16, and even the internet wasn't as big. So we still had kind of the hand-down games that me ma and all my aunties would have threw like a blue rope around a pole, and we had the swings and we played piggy, and we still did all that stuff. Or it was a trolley, I remember, you'd get into the trolley and push each other around in it. But yeah, no, it was great growing up because we still, we had like the playground's gone now, there's a pitch there I think instead. But yeah, we had great times, you'd go out at 9 and you'd know when the street lamps come on, you had to go back. Yeah, so we still had that kind of growing up. And yeah, but at the same time, you'd see there was a lot of, you know, stereotypes as a teenager going to secondary school, and I found especially going to college, you're almost afraid to say you were from Sheriff Street because people already made assumptions about you. Or even I found my accent, people would be like, you're from the inner city, which part? And you kind of, you might be like, I'll just say I'm from the North Wall. Just say I'm from the North Wall, because not many people would know, but they'd know Sheriff Street. And I kind of found, I was a bit embarrassed as a teenager, to be honest, growing up saying I was from Sheriff Street, because you would be reading all the headlines. And then when I went to college and I was kind of taken out of my environment for a bit, I realised how special it was when I was put in an environment where people were from all over Ireland country. My boyfriend's from Slane, and that's where I am at the moment. But even still, though I live down there, I still have to come back up every week to see my family. We're very close-knit, and I think that close-knitness comes from the flats, because everybody was on top of each other, and your neighbours, we were friends and that kind of thing. Like, it was great growing up because all my aunties lived around me, so it didn't matter if my ma was in work or wherever she was, I always had a place to go in and get me dinner or my lunch. But at the same time, you wouldn't get away with it, there was always somebody watching it out the window, what are you doing, who are you with, kind of thing. So it was a very safe place for me growing up, even though that sounds strange to say considering the stereotype that's out there. But yeah, that when I went to college then I started seeing how people looked at Sheriff. I well, actually no, like my family's from down there, my friends are from down there, there's a great community down there, and they don't publicise that. Like even with the community week, I remember great memories of the community week, going in with my aunties and the Queen of the festival, the Bonnie Baby and Jerry Fay'd have sweets for all the kids, and loads of great memories like that I have growing up Sheriff Street. So I started down with my artwork. Now I want to start painting the people that have done great stuff, and that was the show that I had in the Sheriff Hall there in July. I painted the likes of Olivia O'Toole, who scored the most goals for Ireland, female goal scorer. I painted Pierce O'Leary, who's an up-and-coming boxer. There's plenty, there's no shortage of people down here that are extraordinary and doing amazing things.
I knew at that time it was the right place for me, and I haven't looked back since. I absolutely love it. I sort of fell out of love with boxing at the time, and then the second I joined Dublin Docklands, I knew I was back in the game.
And is that because of the feeling that's in the community? Was in the boxing club? Was it to do with your mentor? What bit do you think was in it?
I'd say the mentor and the ethos that my mentor Philip has in the club. So it is a community club. Most of the members are from this area. We all train together. We're all helping each other get ready for fights, and we're all pushing each other on as part of a club and part of a community, which is great. You're also seeing kids from this community grow, and I suppose grow as people and grow as kids like I did 20 years ago. There is a misconception, but as I said to you earlier on, I think that's human nature. So recently I was at the Olympics and I was having the same misconceptions of middle class people. And I don't think it's until you get to know people, until you hear their stories and until you see what they have to offer as people, then you can fairly judge them and where they're from. But I think slowly the misconception of the Docklands and the inner city is changing. There's lots of positives, from sports people to youth workers to schools to actors to people working in arts. There is so many good people from this area, and I think the general public is starting to see that the shift is sort of changing.
Well, it was a happy little shop. We all used to go in, and Noel, you'd get your wafer off Noel, and if you knew you'd only so much, he'd still give you a big one. With a sad face, you know, you'd put up and say, Noel, I've only that much. But he'd still give you a wafer. It was tough times now, there was but they helped out one another. Like, it was if you didn't get paid today and someone had a parish due, they brought your children up and sat them around the table and they gave them that dinner.
And there was quite a lot of tragedies as well, wasn't there, on Docklands?
There was. Me aunt's son was drowned here over on the bridge here, Georgie. He was only 9.
But I remember the man in the shop when it was old Matty's.
Yes.
And that's where the extension went on at ground level. And so we could see into the shop. The shop wasn't like any other shop in the area. It was very old curiosity shop style. But the great advantage for children was that the child could go to the window and look right across the window without being lifted up by a parent or a friend or whatever, and they could have a lovely view of everything that was in the shop window. Then we would go down the 3 steps and buy our bits. Penny.
I got to know your father a little bit then. He was a quiet man. Your mother was the boss, I think. I think that was fair to say. And she was a strong woman, your mother. And maybe she had to be in the context, you know. But she was strong. She was a strong person in her personality, and she was very decisive. There was no shilly-shally. She knew what was what. Your dad was very quiet, soft-spoken, discreet, I would say. He was always I always imagined that he was like a character out of Ulysses, James Joyce's novel. I could see him as one of the characters in that. He was a good conversationalist and had a sense of humour, wry sense of humour, I would have thought. And then there was your family, your brothers. You were the eldest, I think.
I was indeed.
And then there was Paul and Gerard, Andrew after Paul, that's right, and Gerard and Vincent. And then there was you had a little sister who I think became part of the family.
That's
Elizabeth, am I right?
That's right, yeah.
I can remember her as a little tiny tot. And so it was quite a household, your family, young people. Your brothers served Mass in the church, and one of my important duties given me when I came here was to look after the older boys.
Oh yeah, I loved that shop. As a matter of fact, all the kids in Sherrill Street loved that shop. I remember going in, we used to go in on a Sunday morning after Mass, and we'd all go down to the back. It wasn't a very big shop, but we used to go down the back of it because Noel had a stool in the back of the shop, and he used to sell the Crystal Springs, orange, and American cream soda. So a lot used to answer, but he used to sell little bottles. Carmel was inside, she was doing, the dinner was of Sunday. And he said, I know Mary, and I said, do you want me to help you now? And he said, oh God, Mary, would you? And I said, yeah, no problem. Went in behind the counter. So then a fella come in and asked me for a penny worth of jelly babies, all girls.
And I said to him, "What do you mean all girls?" He said, "Well, there's more on girls, Mary, than there is on boys." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You know what I mean, Mary." So I thought that was very funny.
Massey's shop was up the corner of a lane. The lane we called the Clickies Lane. Massey's shop was where we bought Lucky Lumps. He sold every kind of sweet going. From jelly babies to gobstoppers to Nancy balls to plucked the back of sailor's chew. But the Lucky Lump was the one with the 2 bob in it, or 6 in it. Maybe there might be boxing, there might be 3 2 bobs in it, and maybe a threepenny bit in it. And there'd be fellas buying them all the time. They have no teeth from eating Lucky Lumps, trying to get the 2 bob. Massey was a little lower sized man, oily hair. He always reminded me of Eddie Murphy, the actor.
Yeah.
I think you'd agree with me there with that.
Yeah.
I also wanted to find out his relationship. A guy who worked in this part-time, sometimes give him a hand. A guy who worked in the Lake Cinema up on Talbot Street. I thought it was an in-law of his or a friend of his. There'd be a few friends in and out of it too. And Massey always opened for Christmas Day religiously, which is great for the kids in the area, because he sold caps for the cap guns and stuff like that. And there'd be queue outside the shop Christmas all day. And that was his best day, I suppose, profit-wise, in Sheriff Street. But I mean, can you just see the shop window? One big window, all sweets in it. And he sold cigarettes, loose cigarettes and loose matches and all that kind of stuff as well.
Well, I suppose my early childhood in Sheriff Street would have been, to me, growing up in the flats was no different to anyone growing up anywhere. But I guess I grew up to be told that I was deprived daily and underprivileged. But I was like, I didn't know what I was deprived of.
Yeah. Well, nobody knew they were poor.
Yeah, and underprivileged. But in the early days, in the first kind of, we'd say, primary school years, it was just a busy area. Loads of games out in the streets with the kids. We swung on the rope on the swings. You could do 2 ropes and put your foot out. And I'd be telling the kids we used to play skipping in 2 ropes. Like it was always busy. We were very, what would you say, industrial. Like there was always plenty to do. There was always plenty of kids out playing.
When my Granny O'Shea had it, I used to weigh the coal at the back of the shop.
Yeah.
You know, you stow the coal and wherever it may be, stuff like that. And I used to do messages and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
After school or whatever.
So you started young working in a shop?
Yeah.
As everybody does who's in a shop?
Yeah, I know. I left school when I was 12, so.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
And at that time, were they selling the paraffin? Because I know when my parents took it over, they sold paraffin.
That's right.
The smell of it was everywhere.
Yeah, it was lovely.
Yeah, but you had all these, there was different sized jugs, and you'd measure the paraffin out in each jug, and then you'd pour it into, was it a jerry can or something that come over?
They had a little glass thing that if you turn, when it was full of oil, you turn it up and put it into the back
of the paraffin heater.
Yeah, and go upside down. And then when obviously it was upside down, and as soon as it drained out, then out again and fill it again. Well, you have to pay for it, of course.
Yeah. My first memories of the shop was waiting, coming down with my dad. We walked all the way from Cabra back to Sheriff Street, as we did every Sunday morning. He wanted to have his pint with his friends, and I can't even remember if we weren't allowed into the pub, but outside the door of the pub, it wasn't just me, a lot of other kids were handed money to go and play, and then we would meet up in the nanny's house later on, nanny's flat. But when you got your money, your few bob, you went to this shop, and for me, it was like walking into heaven, the jars of sweets and stuff. And the one, memories are very vague, but this one memory I always treasure, I suppose you'd call it, was that if it was 5 sweets for a penny or a halfpenny, I can't remember the correct denomination, but if it was 5 for a penny, you always got 6. And some of the kids, when they were holding their hand out to give the money, they would delay giving the money and getting the sweets and they maybe got an extra one. So it became a bit of a game. And that's just after occurring to me now while I'm talking. It was a larger than life character, something you'd like to write a book about. When you're being handed sweets and someone gives you an extra one, it's worth a fortune to you.
The memories I would have of the shop, as we said earlier on, was my father when I lost my mother's cigarettes, when he actually replaced them so I wouldn't get into trouble. He was famous for his ice cream. My father never got his full wafer. He never got his broken chocolate either. The Cadbury's for his cream chocolate.
Yes, Cadbury's cream chocolate. Yeah. Did he sell that loose?
He did, yeah. He sold it in the bag loose. Broken. It was all broken, so used to get that scoffing on him as well on the way home.
How did you explain that away?
I just blamed Nolan, said he didn't put enough in the bag. Which never happened, but it was always a full quarter. I think if we used to get a quarter, we used to get, yeah.
That's right, a quarter. But you had to have your excuse ready if you were going to like help yourself.
So yeah, then as I said, I used to hang around with Paul. I used to go to school with Paul, sit in the house and do the homework. And that's Matty's now. Like the rest of it would be the same as everybody else, I suppose. We all had our own memories of it. Mm-hmm. But it was mainly the chocolate and the ice cream was I think they were his big sellers.
My earliest memories of all the happy times that I've spent in Sheriff Street. It was a beautiful village. The flats were so well kept and everyone was everybody's friend. Nobody was better off than anybody else, so we all mucked in with everything. I had a lovely childhood. Nothing to compare to young people today. We had nothing, but we made the most of what we had.
Yeah.
We only had hills of sand to play in. We had Sheriff Street. We were able to go out. Nobody said you couldn't go to the shops. If you got a penny, you could go. And of course, where did you make? You had to go to Matty's because the only shop you could see because you weren't big enough for the other ones.
That's right, the window was low.
You weren't tall enough.
That's right.
You could stand outside that sweet shop and think you were Willy Wonka there because everything was so nice.
Yeah. And do you remember me dad?
I do remember now. He was so quiet compared to Carmel that we always hoped Noel would be on the counter when we go in.
Matty's shop opened in 1958, so I was 2 then. It's said that the first words that come out of a baby's mouth is either Mam, the second Dad, the third Money, and the fourth to come out of my mouth, I say, was Matty's. I had to be in Matty's as a baby with either my brothers or sisters. But the first time I can recall being in it is when it was the first day I started school, infant school. I was 4 years of age. It was like going into an Aladdin's cave. Okay, there was all sweets all over the place, but the thing that attracted me to it was all the toys. So every day before school, I'd be brought into Matty's and brought into it again after school, or else I'd cry. As I grew older, I got to know Noel and Carmel, mostly Noel, as I was talking to him at least twice a day. I had a big collection of toys, soldiers and dinky cars. Most of them I bought in Matty's.
But I wouldn't think it's the same now. I would think that a number of people have got have a good sense about themselves. They've taken on all different careers. This is how I see it.
Yes.
I just watch it and I know where where people moved out to. They moved on to very good careers in different places, and they took the opportunities.
Yes.
Now some people didn't take the opportunities, but that's always going to be the way in society.
Totally.
You know, but those who took the opportunities have made a wonderful life for themselves. But they never forget where they came from.
Never.
They never. You meet people anywhere and they're so proud of where they came from.
The shop was on the way to the school, which is, you know, it was always everybody met if you're meeting, even going to Mitch from school, you met at Matty's, whether you were going to school or not. So you usually went in. The big memory is Sundays getting ice cream.
and he used to do the ice cream and get the bars. But you'd go in and you'd order an old Calypso bar. There was, you know, and there was always people in the shop. I don't think I've ever seen the shop empty. You know, it's one thing that you do realise. There was always someone in it, and the fact that it was on the way uptown and going into the school as well. Like, you always, you know, past Matty's, well, you very seldom passed it, you always went in. Even if you're going in to say to somebody, talk to somebody or buy something, you always went into Matty's.
Well, I always remember when we were going to school, we used to go in there and buy stuff sometimes when we had the money to get something, and then when we were coming home from school we used to go in as well, and we used to share our stuff as well. It was great. It was a great memory because he was so nice and decent, and he was a great man because he was soft spoken basically. He was a real gentleman. He really was. I always remember that about him.
He always seemed to be always there, hard working, and still had time for people to welcome them in, and he never rushed you. If you went in and you said you were trying to pick something, he'd never say, "Come on, hurry up, there's people behind you." He'd just say to you, "Pick whatever you want," and sometimes you'd be ages. As someone said to me, that there's a joke, pennies would have that and twopence would have that.
Well, I always remember the last shop. I always remember the couple of steps down into it. And back in them years, it was a very famous shop. It was really, for getting sweets and stuff.
Just my first experience of going to Sheriff Street was being surrounded by lots of small children just running around. And then going back, and I had a really, I suppose, profound experience where I was walking down the street on my own and I was a little bit terrified because of what I had been told. And I saw a group of teenagers and they were all standing around this kind of oil barrel, and it was lit, and they were all standing around, and I didn't know what to do, and I was like, should I go forward or should I go back? And they stopped and asked me what I was doing, so I thought, well, here I am, I'll just tell them. So I explained that I was interested in the changes going on in their community and what they were doing and what they felt about it, and they were so welcoming. It was like a completely different experience, and it really taught me a lesson, and that lesson was, it's okay to be afraid, but you need to really understand people and recognise the importance of people and individuals and their communities. And I suppose that stuck with me since then. It's been, don't prejudge and don't judge a book by its cover. One of the things I discovered was that this was like an activity that kind of went down the generations, that people passed the kind of skills of stevedoring and so on all the way down through different generations. So that was the huge impact. And then I think that the kind of difficulties really started to emerge when you had Tony Gregory really trying to fight for a deal for the community. And I suppose that's the first alarm bells, that he recognised something was changing and really the community needed an advocate. So that was really the first thing. And then when you start seeing what was going on in other cities, similarly, which had lost their port activities and the kind of changes that were happening there, I suppose there was a bit of concern for what would happen for the community, because yes, jobs were needed and investment was needed. But I think one of the things that really strikes me is the types of changes that come to these places are really more about national economies and the city as a whole and creating employment in general. But what actually happens to the communities in the immediate environs can be very different, and they can become much more sidelined. And all of those issues that emerge as a result of that sort of, you know, unemployment and the antisocial behaviour in some cases that came with that, none of that was being addressed because it was very much property led, following a model that's really been seen in many other cities around the world.